I am so happy with how this looks for the Rangers. We have a pitcher, Jack Leiter, and he is a dude.
And while I do think his hitting is worse than Derek Jeter, it's not that far off.
You're not mentioning 2006. You can mention other people, not 2006.
Oh, just because I bought the best soap doesn't mean your room's going to be clean. It just leaves it to where I don't believe that the Canadians had a shot.
I really don't like the Clippers just kind of sending it in when they're like,
Hi, this is Kelly Forbes with the Dallas Stars, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. Austin, we are recording after the first round of the NFL draft, and what a draft, Austin. And I would say we did pretty well with this picks. I know you said we're not going to get a lot of points, but you got 8, I got 11. I would take that as a win for how wild this NFL draft was in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, it hurt a little bit the way that 9 and 10 went, where I had them flipped. There were some of those picks. I mean, we tie if we flip those, because I'd have gotten 1 and 2. But and there's also some other picks I just really disagree with. But yeah, it was a good draft. Do you want to go through the draft really quickly?
Yeah, let's do that. So we both got Mendoza. I don't think there's much else to say on Mendoza. We kind of expected it, and I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. It's just kind of what does Vegas do to surround him?
Yeah, and like I said before, and I've said this multiple times now, I don't think he starts this year. I think getting Kirk Cousins is the right choice, and you obviously have Brady in the front office to kind of help him become the best version of himself. So I think that's a great sort of environment around him, but I don't expect him to start this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think he starts sometime this season, but we'll have to see. And then Bailey, this is kind of mocked. He's a great pass rusher, and I just need great players, and I think going with the best pass rusher in this class makes sense.
Yeah, I think he is above Reese and above any other. I think the only other talented guy that I would say is more talented to him is Caleb Downs. Obviously, Downs fell a little bit, whether it was injury-wise or otherwise, because it was position. But yeah, if we're just talking straight talent, Bailey's probably the third most talented guy out of this draft, and I truly believe that Bailey's a great player. So I love this pick.
And now this is probably where the next 2 picks to me were surprising when I looked at this. Or it was mocked Jeremiah Love was going to the Cardinals, but that was still surprising to me that they went that way. Because
who did you have going 3?
I had them trading out, and then the Dolphins trading up for Arvell Reese.
So both of us had Arvell Reese. We just had them going to different teams. But I do not like this pick at all. I don't think this makes sense timeline-wise. I really don't. Best case scenario is Bijan with the Falcons. Well, Bijan with the Falcons still has a lot of issues. And like not Bijan himself, the player, but the surrounding team, the QB situation, being able to surround him with winners. And I think they're in a worse starting position than Bijan with the Falcons because they have the worst defense in football next year. Because I think the Cowboys, with the addition of Downs, will be better than them at bare minimum. And they had a bottom 3 defense last year. I think really the Cowboys are the one that sticks out as being worse. But I really don't like this pick at all. I don't think it makes sense for 2 reasons. One, I still like Trey Benson, and I think that he could become something in the future. And 2, you don't have clear success like as a quick attainable thing. And I know you're a high pick, so taking a high pick running back, but there's teams that are down here that I think would have made a lot more sense. Like the next team, again, having it 4. So I wasn't really having a problem with Jeremiah Love going high. I thought it would have made more sense for some of these other teams to trade up and get him at 3 than it would be that the Cardinals take him at this point. I don't think it makes sense. Timeline-wise and schematically, I don't think it really makes sense. But that's not a knock on Jeremiah Love as a prospect. I think he's a great player. I'm not against drafting him in fantasy either. But if we're talking about trying to win football games, I don't think this is the pick that does it for me.
I agree with you on that, especially when you are starting from scratch basically with how bad your team is. Like
The first,
Like, you're not-
the first choice isn't usually a running back. Now, there are some players I do think will stay there and be good. Like, I wouldn't have taken a wide receiver because of Marv and Michael Wilson. Obviously, you have a top 3 tight end in the league in Trey McBride. If you like Jacoby Brissett, then don't take a QB. They probably would have taken a QB if there were one. But I think that addressing defense was the absolute need. I would have taken Reese. I also would have been fine with Downs. I would have been fine with Styles. I think defense was the must address because you need both sides of the football to win a championship. If we didn't see that be proven totally by this past season with the Seahawks.
And you could argue Downs higher because of just kind of you see a lot of talk about that Seattle defense was Amani Warrior and just what.
Oh no, exactly. And I think people see safety and they're like, well, that's a low need. But I think the past 3 or so years have really proven the need of a really good safety and how those players can really benefit your roster.
And the defenses have changed to where these safeties are in the box. Like they're a linebacker.
They're doing everything. They're rushing the passer sometimes. They're dropping into coverage to guard tight ends. They're guarding running backs on slot routes, and they're guarding every position almost. They are your most versatile defender, in my opinion. And yeah, we'll get to Downs in a little bit. Let's go over to 4. How did you like Carnell Tate going at 4?
I was shocked, but I don't hate it. Because if the main goal of the Titans is this is where, like, yes, the Cardinals just had a bad defense, and this is where it would work because this is a lot of the great players in this draft were defenders. But with the Titans, it's like, okay, you want to add a wide receiver to help Cam Ward, and you chose the best one.
Yeah, that's where I just disagree. I don't think that Carnell Tate's the best one. He's not been the best wide receiver on his team his entire college career. I think if you watch Ohio State games, you'll see some great routes by Carnell Tate. He's a great deep threat, but they never have the best guy guarding him. And I think that doesn't matter as much in the NFL. When you're comparing Pickens and CeeDee, I think that the 1-2 corner, especially on some teams, are pretty close to the same. Sure, there's some teams like where you have Christian Gonzalez or a very clear CB1. But in college, usually the best corner on the roster is guarding the best player the entire game. And that's where Carnell Tate, for me, his stats just don't scream off the page. When I watch him play, again, he's going against the subpar corner on the roster. I would have went with Tyson if I was going to go wide receiver. I don't hate the direction of the pick. Again, I had him going Love, so addressing offense, I think it's a reasonable choice. But I don't think Carnell Tate is a dominant receiver. And that's what you do when you take a guy at 4. You're trying to take a generational receiver if you take him at 4, and I don't think Tate is that.
Yeah, I didn't watch a lot of the highlights from Tate, so when I think the Titans thought he was the best wide receiver, so you go with that. We'll have to see. And Ohio State, I want to say Emeka Egbuka didn't always have the best corner on him, and he still showed up, but he wasn't the number one. I think this gives the Titans a reliable weapon, and I keep feeling like they have another top wide receiver, but I don't think they do. I don't know why. Or they have a guy that is their number one, but it's an offensive weapon. And I thought with Robert Saleh, his first pick would be defense. And that just wasn't the case.
Yeah, I mean, there were some seasons, sure, where Egbuka wasn't the best player on his team, but I would say he definitely he at least got 1,000-yard seasons and double-digit touchdown seasons that's where I don't really see Tate doing that. I mean, his best season was this past year where he had 875 yards and 9 touchdowns, while Egbuka had 1,000-plus yards in 2 different seasons. I don't think Carnell Tate was taking advantage of some of the guys that Egbuka was effectively doing.
Mm-hmm. Now, 5, I'm not surprised that Caleb Downs was not selected here because Arvell Reese is on the board. And people were talking about the Giants selecting too many pass rushers. I don't think you can ever have too many pass rushers because even last year they had Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and Abdul Carter. They still were not leading the league in sacks.
Yeah, I think this pick would have made a little bit more sense if it was a different team, because I don't know if Reese is someone that I think is going to have to grow into the player that they want him to be. He's a player that has to learn a lot, and I think edges learn more through reps than they do through staying on the bench. I think that's you learn more physically at that position, and I don't know how many reps he's going to get out of the gate. That's why I'm a little bit concerned. I agree with you that you can't have too many edge rushers, but Reese isn't like David Bailey is not a finished product. He can still grow, but he's a lot more of a complete, like, I know what he's going to do, versus Reese is going to have to grow into the player. I did see that they're supposed to use him as an inside linebacker some, but I don't really know if that's necessarily how they're going to use them or not. I think Harbaugh's going to have a lot of decision-making there, but I believe that a lot of players on defense learn more through playing the game, unlike QB, who I think learns a lot through being cerebral and watching. So I'm just concerned about him not reaching his max potential because he's not getting the necessary reps. And he's a player that needs those reps to get on par with some of these other guys drafted around him.
I see your point. I think he's going to get a lot of reps. Will it be at pass rusher? Maybe not. Maybe linebacker. But I like the idea of just stockpiling talent on the defensive side of the ball and seeing what happens and just finding ways to make it work. So that's, to me, what the Giants were doing. But if you want to talk about, I wasn't able to find the full details of this trade, but the Chiefs traded up to number 6 and took Mansour Delane. And you and I talk a lot. I'm a huge fan of Delane. I do think he was the best corner. And yes, the Chiefs could have gone Caleb Downs if they wanted to do best player available. But I think they put themselves in the corner where they had to go get a corner because of the trades and getting rid of a lot of guys in the past few years, and especially this offseason.
I still don't like the take because Downs is there. I don't think that Delane is on the same level as Downs. And I think that Downs would have been the better pick. But I get addressing a position of need, but I think there's a tier difference in the level of player that Downs is versus Delane.
Yeah, you make a good point. Downs is, I would say, better too. Delane is the best corner, but if you want a defensive playmaker, go Downs. And yeah, I think the Chiefs were just set on corner.
But trading, I don't think you had to trade up to make that selection.
Yeah, that's another tricky thing. I don't think any of the teams before 9 are doing it.
Well, and if you think about it, Downs still fell to 11, so I don't think that.
That's true.
I just don't understand it. This is where I
would only consider a trade up if you're trying to get above the Giants pick. And
yeah. But then he survived that pick, and I just really don't get it.
Yeah, that was shocking. But we'll get to him in a sec. Sonny Styles, to me, makes sense for Washington because he's a fantastic linebacker, and they still have Bobby Wagner, but he's getting older, so I am a little surprised they didn't go wide receiver here, but maybe they didn't expect to see Sonny Styles fall to them.
Yeah, I mean, I had Styles going at this point. This is the first, 3, 4, 5, 6, all those picks really confuse me in a lot of ways. I don't think this pick confuses me. I understand taking Styles. He's a great player. And I think that while I would have addressed offense, I get not taking Tyson. This is a good pick.
Yeah, and then we have the Saints getting Tyson, adding another wide receiver.
Pick. Amazing pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know a lot of the things were injuries, but you compare him with Olave, I think that
yeah, and the way they're building around a young QB, this is the pick they needed to make. And I think while there are, sure, some injury concerns with Tyson, I think that he'll be fine. And I think this addresses a lot of needs, and I love the pick.
Yeah, it's interesting. Then you have the Browns go offensive tackle. They go Spencer Fennell. We never hate O-lineman picks.
And I had Fano going 10, so this isn't like a reach. The only O-lineman picks I may have disagreement with are the ones where you reach heavily on a guy. They didn't here. I like the pick.
So this is where I said we never hit on a lineman pick. I don't hate, like, it was a good pick from New York, but I was blown away when I saw Downs was still available at 10. I'm like, okay, there's no way the Giants.
No, I don't get it. And look, I can't hate on a lineman pick, like you said. They also didn't reach because I had Francis going 9, but I don't get why Downs falls to the point he did. But
yeah, I'm still in shock because I just never thought Downs would be there for the Cowboys. Yes, they did trade up, which I don't hate that idea, especially given what happened between Pittsburgh and the Eagles later in this first round.
Yeah. You want to trade up the one pick just to make sure you get your guy. I think that makes sense, and I think that that's a pick that the Cowboys got to steal here at 11. I think that look, they don't play the same position, but it reminds me a lot of the part of the draft where they took Micah. It reminds me a lot of the Micah pick.
Yeah, I made that joke. I thought he was the 11th, but he was actually the 12th pick. But I like it because of, especially when you're getting to the X's and O's, Downs is going to be a safety, but he's going to play the very important position in Parker's defense. And Downs is just a defensive playmaker. And I'm really shocked because the Cowboys haven't drafted a safety, I think, since the early 2000s in the first round.
And it's still an amazing pick, in my opinion. I think that
Still, that's why I can't really. I was settled on Delane. I really wanted Delane because I didn't think Downs would make it to pass the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, I had Downs at 5. So, I mean, I think this is a great selection, and I think this is the steal of the first round.
Yeah, I do think it's a great pick. And then you go to the team they traded with, the Dolphins. They select Caden Proctor. I didn't know. I guess, yeah, Caleb Proctor was the 3rd rated offensive tackle. I was surprised to see him go this high.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see him go this high, but again, you can't hate on picks like this.
Then this one did give me points, but I don't think I do think it's a missed opportunity for the Rams to take advantage of all the guys that were available there when I think Ty Simpson was going to be available later.
This draft baffles me on so many levels. I think I've made that clear at this point. This one baffles me the most. This is a Jordan Love pick, but the Packers didn't trade up for Jordan Love. It was a pick at 26. Well, okay, even if it wasn't trade up, it was a pick
they traded back into the first, I think.
Sure, but it was, I think, the 26th pick.
Yeah,
it's a late first, and trading up to 14, not 14, right? It's 13.
Well, they had 13 from the trade with Atlanta last year.
Yeah. I don't get this pick at all. I think it's, if I'm Matthew Stafford, I'm not happy. That's all I'll put it.
Yeah, and it looked like Sean McVay was not happy, and it begs the question, like, what? Yes, I see developing a quarterback, but you didn't have to do it this early. I would have rather. It would have been great for my prediction, but take Sadiq or take Mekhi Lemon, even Ruben Bain too. I'm like, there are a lot of guys that now if all those guys had gone above them, then it's like, okay, I get it a little bit more, but this was surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I had them taking an lineman, but I mean, I think any other selection would have made more sense than this one did, for me at least. I think literally any other position group, and I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
As much, at least.
And because it immediately helps them. This is more of a long-term investment.
Yep.
So then, talk about O-lineman. Ravens went O-lineman. This is a pick I got right, but and you brought up a good point in the prediction video of them investing at wide receiver for Lamar. Yes, it's an offensive lineman, but
I've given up on the
And
idea
it's-
that they're going to help their offense in any way with position players that aren't linemen. I mean, I think I've given up on that proposition. They refuse to give Lamar any help.
yeah, I think maybe in a few years we'll see, or maybe next year we'll see what happens.
But you can't just keep waiting. I mean, Lamar has shown injury problems before. I think the more you wait, the more you just dig your own grave.
Then this is another guy that I'm surprised this fell. Yes, there was him putting himself in the news, but also his short arms, I think, was overrated. Ruben Bain to the Bucks could be a great. Like I think you look back on, it's like really he fell.
Yeah, I think this is a good pick. I understand why he fell somewhat, but I still think this is a good pick.
Yeah. So now this is someone where I thought Giants were going to go wide receiver, but I don't hate the Kenyon Sadiq pick. I know I was talking with the Jets fan today, and they were like, I don't get the tight end pick. This is a team where you have Garrett Wilson. Now you have Sadiq. We'll talk about the later pick. But this is an offense that's starting to grow. You have a veteran quarterback, which I think is just a placeholder for a little bit, but you're going to have an established array of weapons for the next future quarterback.
Also, this is not your normal tight end. Like, this isn't a traditional tight end like Mason Taylor is right now. That's the problem I've seen a lot of Jets fans bring up is the fact that they already have a good tight end. I would agree. Mason Taylor's good. But this is can play slot receiver in some sets, can still block well, but he is a freak of nature, and I like the pick, personally.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see, and it's just when you're a team as bad as the Jets, I think you kind of get a leeway because your team's bad anyway, so why not just go make the right picks and stuff like that? So or go get good players and put it with your team, and then you can, as long as you hit on your picks, that helps your vision. I think that's a really good thing for your team. So now we go to offensive tackle selection for the Lions. It makes sense given just all that movement up front with Blake Miller going to the Lions.
Yeah, I get that. He did go a little bit higher than I anticipated. I had him going 28, but again, if you like him, and O-line's a position that, again, it's very hard for me to disagree with. I did think they were going to go O-line, though. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and it was just kind of that was how the board went with offensive linemen. Then you have Caleb Banks going to the Vikings, and he dealt with a lot of injuries, but the Vikings going with a defense, I think investing in the front line makes sense. I am surprised they didn't take Thieneman.
Yeah, I was surprised as well, especially after Harrison Smith's exit, but I don't think this is a bad pick per se.
Yep. Now another offensive line pick, Monroe Feeling from Georgia to the Panthers, and that's just protecting your quarterback.
Yeah, I had him going at 13, so he falls a little bit here, but it's still, I think, a very good player to add.
Now, this is the thing where it was kind of the Steelers thought they were going to get Mekhi Lemon, but the Eagles actually traded with the Cowboys. And given how the draft shook out for the Cowboys, I wouldn't have hated if they went Mekhi Lemon, but I understand you do need a need for defense. And then trading with a rival, but
the trading with the rival thing did really surprise me. But
yeah, and like get some more. But if you look at it, the Cowboys actually got better. They traded 2 5ths to move up, got downs, and then they trade back and they get 2 4ths from the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, and I think Lemon's a good prospect. I had Boston going at 20, so it sucks that I picked the wrong wide receiver because I had Lemon going earlier in the draft, but I still think this is a good ad.
And then this explains why the Steelers took a little bit longer. They took the tackle Max Einacker. Einacker.
Yeah.
I did not know he had kind of started playing the position in college, which makes me very excited because he's still learning the position. So to me, he can get even better.
Yeah, I had looked at him a little bit, but that's part of the reason why I didn't have him in the first round. So, but
Yeah.
he does give you that chance that he has a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm. And now Akeem Mesidor goes to the Chargers. Was a little
This
surprised
is
they went with. Yeah.
well, I was gonna say I got this pick right. I thought that D line was
Oh, okay.
what they needed to address. Yeah, because
Yeah, they needed edge. I'm just surprised they chose Mesidor, given his age.
I think Mesidor is a really good player. So, but that's true. There were some other guys available, but and obviously the next player was also an edge.
Yeah, and the Cowboys get an edge rusher. I haven't watched too much of him, but when I saw kind of his frame, it was kind of like, okay, this is a guy that maybe could develop. And they just honestly need players at the position for edge as they're shifting to a 3-4, or it's like 4-2-5, but they need a outside linebacker, and Malachi Lawrence makes sense. So to me, this made for a really great draft from the Cowboys because you got a defensive playmaker, and then you secured another defensive threat.
Yeah, I think I love this draft for the Cowboys. I think that this was kind of, as a Cowboys fan, obviously I'm not one, but I can imagine this being not a dream draft, but it really could. It really is up there, getting Downs at 11 too.
Downs does a lot, and I think the only other thing is like maybe keep trading back, but this is really cool. I'm interested to see how Malachi Lawrence plays.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
And then the Browns selected Casey Concepcion. He's a good wide receiver, and they're focusing on helping that offense. And someone's like, are they helping Shedeur? And I'm like, I honestly don't know.
I think they are. I mean, I had the Browns adding a wide receiver, just the wrong one. Again, I had them adding Denzel Boston at 20, and then I had Concepcion going at 18. So I had the right idea on some of these picks, just at the wrong pick.
Yeah, that's a good point. Then you have Dylan Thieneman from Oregon to a safety for the Bears. I really like this for the Bears because he's a great defensive player. He's not on the level of Downs, but he's a good safety. He was the top safety in this draft. It's just the other safety in this class is Caleb Downs.
Yeah, I mean, I had him going at 21 to the Steelers, and then I had the Bears taking secondary with Chris Johnson, but with Thieneman on the board, I totally understand that pick.
Yeah, and now I do not know who Keelan Rutledge is. I did not see that guy mocked in the first round for the Texans.
Yeah, he was mostly a second round guy. I didn't watch much tape, but it's an O lineman. So while I may,
it's true.
It's some teams just feel differently about some O linemen. So I get it. At the same time, I don't necessarily like when you reach on a guy, but that's an O lineman. It worries me a little bit, but I can't. If they like their guy, they like their guy, and offensive line's a position of need for the Texans. So
now with the Dolphins, it's getting players. I thought Chris Johnson was fantastic as a corner, so I like them selecting him. And it's honestly, they're just building up that team, and hitting on picks is what you have to do. And yeah, I think going with a lineman, then getting a secondary player, I think is a really good decision for him.
yeah, I like this pick a lot.
Now, another one. This is something where with the Patriots, I don't hate adding another lineman. I am curious. I read that Caleb Lomu has always just played left tackle. And of course, it'd be an easier transition from left tackle to right tackle versus right tackle versus left tackle. But I was wondering, does this mean they're going to move Will Campbell to guard?
That's a good question that I don't really have the answer to, but again, you can't take too many O linemen. I think it's a good problem to have, is too many linemen. So we'll see, obviously, how that works. But I could see that being the case. But also, why did you take Will Campbell that high if you thought this was even a possibility that you'd have to move him? So I don't know if that's necessarily what it means, but that definitely is how some people could take it.
Yeah, I believe the GM said we're not moving Will Campbell, but you kind of take things at face value, kind of with what he's saying. I don't put too much stock into it, but it definitely is going to help Drake May. And lineman, I know you had that mocked for the Chiefs, but they selected Peter Woods, the defensive tackle from Clemson.
Well, I had the Chiefs taking T.J. Parker. That's who I had the Chiefs taking.
Oh, okay.
So I had to
maybe
take
it was
D-line.
9. You had him going tackle?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I had them going a line earlier in the draft. But here I had them taking an edge. And while it's not edge, it's still D-line. Perfect sense to me.
Yeah. So, and kind of they have to start thinking about replacing Chris Jones, and they're focusing heavily on the defense. So we have that. And then Omar Cooper, Jets trade up, draft a wide receiver. And this just goes to the point with Sadiq. It was something to where this proves to be, if these guys hit, which I think they have a good chance of, that's a solid offense for you to put that quarterback in.
And not just that, I think this helps out Garrett Wilson more than a lot of people understand. Giving him another wide receiver that people are going to have to worry about clears him up a little bit. And I think as Garrett Wilson returns from being 100%, so he was injured part of last season. I know he ended off the year healthy, but he'll be 100% heading into next year. And now he has a running mate that can kind of help him get a little bit of extra breath of fresh air against some defenses.
Yes. And then another one, you have another trade from the Titans. And this is where you see Robert Saleh. Keldrick Folk, to me, he's a guy that needs a lot of work, but the Titans can do that because they're a team that just wants to get better, and Robert Saleh is the guy to do it.
Yeah, because of the coach they have, I like this pick more than I would have in a situation where Saleh or a defensive head coach was not the guy. But with him being the guy, I think that makes a little bit more sense. I do think he has a lot to work on, though. So this is a pick that we're going to have to wait and see, obviously, to see how he turns out.
And then I'll let you talk about the final pick in the first round.
Yeah, this is a pick I predicted. Jadarian Price makes total sense. You lose Kenneth Walker to the Chiefs. You want to add. I think Jadarian Price is a great a great running back. He's not the best receiving wise, but that's why you have Charbonnet. And I think they're going to try to run a 2-1 running back system. And obviously, young running backs are kind of the mold. So I love this pick. Obviously, I predicted it, but I think it's a good pick too.
Yeah. So I don't hate, especially when you're a 32 pick in this. I'm not shocked by it, and I'm interested to see how it does. So we will let you know and keep you updated through that as we post more videos. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.